I'm your last talk before lunch, but I wanted to jump right into it. I love the poll that was taken earlier, where many people actually raised their hands to really wishing they wanted financial literacy in high school or at any age before they made some kind of financial mistake. So, as our host said, I'm Shalicia Harris. I built a company that levels the playing field between financial advisors, institutions, and people like us. A lot of that inspiration came from my childhood and, more importantly, my teenage years. And I'll take you there. So imagine this. You're 15 years old and you're relocating from the Bahamas to Canada. Your parents spent the summer here with you, getting you acclimated, getting you into school, and all of the things you need to do when you're immigrating to a new country. At the end of that summer, they sat my brothers and I down, one 14 and one 18, yes, he was barely legal, and said, here, we're leaving you here. And we're going back to the Bahamas to continue teaching. And now you're responsible for yourself. You are responsible for your finances. You're responsible for this credit card I'm going to give you. And you're responsible for staying out of trouble. That was a teenage dream. Your parents left you, you've got money in the bank, you've got a credit card. What else do you need as a teenager? And that was a really exciting moment until we started to learn more about the financial challenges we had to overcome. As we talked about, our financial systems, our education systems have not necessarily set us up for success in the way that we hoped they did. We took a poll already, and I'll take another one now. How many people would consider their financial stress as one of their top 3 in their lives? I see the hands going up. And that is incredibly representative of what everyone else is feeling. There's a stat that says 38% of Canadians rate financial stress as their number 1 stress in their lives. That's significant. And that's why I created a framework to help me understand my finances better. And I've taken that framework and built a company around it that allows everyone to see how their finances comes together. It's no longer the 2 pieces of advice my parents left us with, which is save your money and stay out of debt. And that becomes a really great segue into our first key pillar of personal finances. Our first pillar is debt. Can't live with it, can't live without it. We all need it in some way. And with the advice my parents left us, I always thought, debt is bad. It's bad. And I had an experience where I was responsible for paying off the credit card. I bought some hair products, and I knew the date that it was due on. So I went in on that day into my bank account, and I transferred the money to the credit card. Woohoo! I'm responsible, 15-year-old, paying my bills on time. A few weeks later, my mom called me and said, who didn't pay the bill on time? That's a scary call, if you knew my mom. And I was terrified because now my mom said, you have to pay me the interest that you cost me out of your own pocket. So I had to dig into my own savings to pay my mom that interest. When I realized it was 19.99%, that shook me. I never wanted to pay that ever again. And it really cemented to me in that moment that debt was bad. Nothing I paid on that credit card was important. But quickly I learned just a few years later when I was looking to go away to post-secondary school, I needed student loans just to get through my education faster, have the experience we all dream of. And I realized that, hey, this debt can get me a lot more opportunities, unlike my hair products. It'll allow me to make more money in the future. But that 5% was still there as interest. And it's significantly more than 19.99%. That debt, my student debt, became an investment in me. And I clearly now identify debt in two ways. There's good debt and there's bad debt. And what it all comes down to is what return is it giving you and how is it going to take you to the next level of your life? Pillar number 2, housing. I've always dreamt of owning my own house. And for the longest time I thought renting is just making someone else rich and paying someone else's mortgage. But guess what? I've done it. I rented for some time and that perspective shifted for me. Because when I started to realize how much the cost of home ownership was, I knew at the time when I still had student loans graduating from university, I didn't have the amount of cash and the amount of backup plan that allowed me to, let's say, my furnace blew up in the middle of winter. Where is that money going to come from a 22-year-old who had just purchased a house because she really wanted to be a homeowner? And it came down to how affordable is my housing? Can I afford a fixed amount or can I afford a relatively fixed amount with a lot of unknowns that can potentially show up, like a blown-up furnace? And that made me realize whatever area of your housing, whether it's renting or owning, it's all a personal choice. As long as you stay within the parameters of what you know that you can afford and how much additional responsibility you can take on. Pillar number 3, financial resilience. It's your fallback plan. When life gets hard, you need a softer place to land. And that's where financial resilience comes in. Another great story here, but terrifying. I was driving on a 6-lane highway in the fast lane, and my car started shaking violently. My engine started smoking, and my dashboard looked like a pinball machine. With that, I realized something was incredibly wrong. So I quickly made it safely to the shoulder of the highway and was able to safely exit. I took a picture of my car on the tow truck and I said, RIP, sent it to a few friends of mine. And I was terrified because at that time, my car was only 5 years old. I still had a financing loan on it. So now I have to think about what am I going to have as a vehicle to get around because I needed it for my job. I was working in business development and traveling all over. What am I going to do with the car loan that I have that I still need to pay off even though I don't have the car anymore? But thankfully, I did myself a solid. I made a good decision to take on the right amount of insurance coverage that actually allowed me to replace the engine of my car completely. I was only then responsible for $500 on the deductible for that insurance coverage. And again, I listened to what my parents said, save your money. So I had money in the bank to cover that $500 and didn't actually have to get into debt for it. That's when I became incredibly thankful and realized how important it is to be financially resilient. And when you are financially resilient, life can move forward a lot faster, even after it throws you a curveball. Even after things get really hard, you have a plan that backs you up. And what I learned from that is as my life became more complex, I started to gain more assets, I needed to protect those things as well. In case, again, something like my engine dying could happen to anything else that I have, including myself. And that's financial resilience. Again, remember it as just your backup plan. Pillar number 4, investing. I know 15-year-olds today are probably a lot more knowledgeable about investing than I was. I just thought it was gambling. And in essence, it sort of still is in a little bit of a way. But it's definitely more structured and not the assumption that I had as a 15-year-old. And that cost me. That cost me 5 years of not investing my money in programs that allowed me to watch my money grow. It wasn't until 5 years into my career when I sat down with one of my friends for lunch and she told me what she was doing and how her money was working for her. That was a big aha moment. I said, I needed to get my life together. I need to understand how each and every area of my life comes together, especially with something complex like investing. And so I took a look back in all my pay stubs and realized I was investing, but I just didn't know about it. I just saw all the lines on my pay stub as money I wasn't getting at the end of the day because someone was taking it away from me. Didn't know a lot about it. So thankfully, I did have some money in the market, but I had opportunities to put a lot more money in the market, but I missed out on over 5 years of that opportunity. And that's where the 5 key pillars comes in. It's knowing what things you need to address on a spectrum and how they interact with each other. But we have one more pillar to go through. Pillar number 5, credit worthiness. It's how they judge you. Your future employer judges you. Your future landlord judges you. Sometimes the government judges you. And of course, the banks judge you. That 3-digit number called your credit score is one of the most important things in anyone's finances. My parents found that out the summer we moved here because they, of course, didn't want to pay rent and make someone else rich. They wanted to get into the market to secure a house that we can live in, to know that they were also investing in themselves. They had the right down payment. They had the jobs. They had the right amount of income. But the banks refused to give them a mortgage because they didn't trust them. They didn't trust that these people can actually pay them back. They didn't know enough about them. And that's what made me missing that one credit card payment so important, because it's a judgment that was made on my parents based on a mistake that I made. They were building their credit, and that's why we were left with a credit card to use it, pay it on time, so that they can build those 3-digit numbers appropriately to get the right mortgage. And that is credit worthiness. It taught me that your credit is powerful. You can have as much cash as you want, but the systems in place that are there to help us thrive cannot trust us unless they have some history on us. And that, again, is what made debt important. Can't live without it. Don't have debt, don't have credit worthiness, don't have financial power. And those are the 5 key pillars of personal finances: debt, housing, financial resilience, investing, and credit worthiness. They're foundational to our finances no matter where we live in the world, because all of the systems are becoming very similar and just as complex. And it's this framework that allows anyone to build a strong financial foundation when they understand the importance of each of those pillars within their lives and how they interact with each other. This is a framework that the education system can take and build on to build a new generation of young adults, adults, and people in general to help them build that strong financial foundation by teaching it in a structured but comprehensive way. And what about our financial institutions? And what about the adults that missed any kind of financial literacy? Who's there to teach them? And that's where the financial institutions come in and my business. When I work with the institutions and businesses, it's how do we take the knowledge and information we have about someone and level that playing field, as I said. You no longer have to go into a meeting with a financial advisor where you're terrified because you don't know enough about you. You're giving them all your information and they're giving you back information. You don't have any power in that transaction. And that's what we're working to break down. The 5 key pillars is something that we're leveraging to help institutions better serve adults like my parents, who could have gone through a program like the one I have that allowed them to see, well, these are the different areas that I need to consider. This is the information that is required for me to get a mortgage, and all of that, because knowledge is power. Ultimately, I want my legacy to be a new generation of people with financial confidence, a new education system that focuses on building the whole person, not just preparing them to get a job where they make money and then they don't know what to do with the money. It's a full circle system we're looking to create. And finally, I'm looking to rebuild trust in the financial systems, break barriers, and create access for everyone using the 5 key pillars of personal finances from the lens of financial literacy. I challenge you to think about your finances in a comprehensive way and think about the legacy you'll leave as you teach future generations about how they can structure and take control of their finances. Thank you, everyone.